Welcome to Family Gamer TV. Now, as an early title for the Xbox One, not quite out on release, but soon after, Max and the Curse of Brotherhood is one that a lot of people might have missed, but I definitely think it's worth a second look. Now, one reason is that it's actually part of the Games with Gold promotion that Microsoft recently announced. They've been doing it for the 360, but now they're bringing it to the Xbox One, which means that each month, like with PlayStation Plus over on Sony's side, they'll be giving free games to Xbox One owners. And in June, it's going to be Max and the Curse of Brotherhood. So now is a really good time to reconsider what the game is about, see whether you think you might want to give it a try. Now, I think it's particularly good for families. It's in the Pegi 12 category, which is one that is not often touched by game developers. So it's definitely worth a look if you've got kids of that age. Now, you can tell from the screenshots of the game that it's quite a family-focused game anyway. You know, it's very colourful and cartoony. You can tell that it's suitable for younger players, or at least that's the impression it gives. But you can't really tell what the game is about. You might think that it's a platformer, straightforward kind of Mario-esque game from that. But that's not actually all it is. And the platforming itself is pretty simple. For the most part, there are a few speed sections where you have to be a bit more quick, but it's definitely nowhere near the level of Mario or Donkey Kong or anything like that. Now, the core mechanic isn't actually the platforming. It's all to do with this marker that he carries. And you might have seen it before in the previous game from these guys, Max and the Magic Marker, which came out in 2010. It was a downloadable title. And what the marker does is it lets you draw objects into existence, kind of environmental objects. So things like platforms, you can drag them up from the ground. You can attach vines to things overhead. And then you use these objects to help Max get closer to his goal of rescuing his little brother. It's a really good way of showing how you progress through the game as well. There's a real sense of getting better because with each chapter you learn a new ability. So you start with these platforms and then you gain the vines and then you get branches and things like that, and you build up your skill set. And you also obviously are getting better at solving these puzzles as you go through the game as well. So it gets more and more difficult, but at a really good pace. There's a really good sense of improving at what the game is letting you do. Now, because these puzzles are environmental, they rely on physics and timing and things like that. So you've got to think about gravity. You might want to attach a vine and then attach it at an angle, let it fall and swing back through the kind of momentum so that Max can then grab onto it and things like that. Now, because it's all based on physics and you have to be quite precise, it can be quite difficult, or at least quite fiddly, with the Xbox One controller with the analog stick. But fortunately, there are really regular checkpoints, and it's never too frustrating, unlike some other games, because you just get to go back and try again straight away. The puzzles themselves are quite short, so you'll never have to do lots and then fail and have to go right back to the beginning. And you get this real sense of achievement as well when you actually manage to solve them, and that continues throughout the game. So it gives you a really good feeling as you're playing. Now that kind of balanced difficulty is one of the reasons that I think this game is really good for adolescents. It doesn't baby you like some younger games that are aimed at the kind of the Pegi 3 or the Pegi 7 category, but it's not at the next level. It's not super mature like a 15 or an 18. There's no blood or gore or anything, for example. There's I think cartoon peril in that there are monsters that are chasing Max and a monster that's taken his brother, but while he can die, it's in a very cartoony way, you know, Tom and Jerry-esque. He gets crushed by a boulder, that kind of thing. There's nothing too violent in there. There's obviously no swearing or anything like that either, so it's good for this age range, not just thematically but also mechanically, because these puzzles can get fairly difficult, but it's not too frustrating. The young protagonist as well is pretty convincing. I found myself thinking of my own 12-year-old brother when I was watching Max. He's running along and going, quit it, to like the monsters and stuff like that. So kids might be able to identify with that as well, unlike, say, the really, really young childish protagonists or the kind of cartoon animals or the more mature protagonists, which they might not identify with as closely. Now, the story itself isn't very complex, but then it doesn't really need to be. The enjoyment of playing this game doesn't come from finding out what's going to happen. You know that you're going to go and find your brother and rescue him eventually. It's just from making progress through it, building up these skills, solving these more and more complicated puzzles. That's where the real enjoyment in this game comes in. There are also a few collectibles and achievements and things as well, and each of these collectibles is kind of hidden away off the track that you need to take to get from one end of the game to the other. So there are more puzzles for you to solve if you go back and play it again. There are things for you can go back and play any level on the menu, you can just select any level in any chapter and go back and find all the hidden items, which is a really, really nice touch. It gives kind of more longevity to the game as well, because you might think that once you've solved all the puzzles, you probably wouldn't want to play it again. But I think it's definitely worth a look, especially if you've got kids in this age range. If you've got kind of these adolescent, kind of pre-teen, not quite old enough for the mature games, but definitely too old for the really kiddie games, definitely give this a try. It's also pretty cheap. Even if you don't have Xbox Live Gold and you can't get it for free in June, it's only $11.99. And there are quite a few hours of play in there, so it's definitely worth it. And as always, it's really, really good to see something in the Pegi 12 category, and we'll definitely keep our eye out for things in future, because I feel like there's a real gap in the market for kids of that age. They really, really want to play games, but all they can do is beg their parents to buy them older ones, because there's just nothing in the range of kids games that challenges them enough. So I'm going to keep my eye on that, and I'll let you know if I see anything else. But for now, thanks for watching. I'll be back soon.